This is the iVapps dashboard, a web-based system which allows you then to read the data that the smart cartridge will communicate. The database itself sits in the cloud, so the devices will communicate to the database. This website will then read the data from the database and help it and present it to be more helpful and show what is going on inside the pipelines. So this front page here is the initial dashboard. At the moment, there are no warnings or errors or late communications with the devices that we've used for the test, based on the fact that there are no issues because we've specifically used them in a test location to demonstrate the data capabilities. So there are no missing readings, there's no warnings, and there's no errors. The circle that you see on the left-hand side, this represents the 3 cartridges split by the warnings and errors. If we had warnings and errors, it would be present and visible within this circle. As we don't, everything is green, so everything is seen as having no issues. The second tab is the Devices tab. In this tab, you will see each device that is assigned to your specific area of the website. Here we've got the test devices that we've used at the WRC and listed from WRC number 1 down to WRC number 4. You will see a longitude and latitude listed. This is to represent where the devices sit in Google Maps. You have actions to the right hand side. The latest readings for each device will take you through to this page where you can then look at the specific parameters over predetermined timeframes. If we look at the temperature experienced by this device over a day, these high readings here are caused by the device not being connected to a sensor, so can be ignored. If we look over the last hour, we will see that there aren't any recordings because it's being disconnected. Equally, you can change to flow. Again, also look at over the day and you will see where we've been running the test system, where we've had 0 flow or we've had flow ranging up to 10 litres a second. Hovering over each point will then show you exactly what the date and timestamp is and also the value recorded. If we go back to the Devices tab, there is also a details box. Opening the details box will let you adjust the device name should you want to change it to something specifically relevant to the device, for example a location, at the start of an address, or anything else which will single the device out so that you know where it is or which one it is. The latitude and longitude are manually entered coordinates. We use a Google Maps system, so these are easily obtainable either from Google Maps or you can get them directly from any other internet mapping if you know the location of where it's installed. And lastly, we have a company that the devices are assigned to. Generally speaking, any given customer or company will have its own area of the website, and this would be represented in here. So devices are assigned to a specific company, so those people that are part of that company and are able to view that company's devices will only ever see those. They're not available for anybody else to see. The limit box allows you to set amber and red warnings. Now these can be determined by any specific user's individual requirements. For example, a red warning may only ever represent something that's getting to a catastrophic level. Pressure is an easy example. If there's a reason why a specific network has to be under a certain pressure, that would perhaps represent a red warning. And the amber warning can sit somewhere in between to show how and when things are changing in the network but not reaching that catastrophic level. This will then alert the user to where to look and which devices to check to ensure that there's nothing dangerous or nothing unusual happening in the network. Of course, it may be that there is, and this will point to where that incident is to allow further investigation to work out what is happening. The maintenance box is currently an inactive link. This is due to be set up to record any maintenance as it happens to the specific devices, so there is a log of all changes, upgrades, or any other works that happen to specific cartridges. In the Readings tab, you have the latest readings from each device that's active within your part of the network. This is just the last time it communicated. As we've been testing here at WRC, you can see that we stopped testing shortly, or a short time ago, so these results are now static and they won't change. The fourth unit has not been used today, as this was here as a spare unit should we need it, and that's just been held as a backup and that's why it shows as only having recorded yesterday. You can then filter down using the links at the top, which will just take you directly to those specific readings. The location section is very interesting. As I said earlier, it's driven by Google Maps. We're currently at the WRC, and here you can see the 4 cartridges, number 1 to number 4, and their specific locations at the WRC. Number 4 is in the building effectively. We've got that here in the meeting room with us to allow people to look at. And then over here you have the cartridges as they're distributed on the flow loop. Number 1 is the one that's nearest to the source pump and nearest to the beginning of the loop. Number 2 is in the middle, and number 3 is at the end. These flags are currently showing green, which means that there's no issues, or they haven't hit either an amber or a red trigger level yet, but if they do, they will then show up as amber or red. Clicking on one of the flags will then show you the last 5 readings that particular device sent. So here you can see the last 5-minute readings up until 1450 that the device communicated up to the cloud. This was when it was already removed from the network, so there's no readings other than the temperature reading, which is just the ambient air temperature where the device was stored. You can use generally the functionality of Google Maps, so you can zoom in, zoom out. The intention here being that you can create a very clear network map which will allow you to trace if there are any issues going on. For example, within the test loop setup that we have here, if number 1 is running green, number 2 has hit a trigger level, let's assume it's gone amber, well, is number 3 seeing that same problem, or is number 3 recovering, suggesting that there's a very localized problem near number 2? Or conversely, if number 2 is amber, is number 3 in fact gone red, suggesting that there's a problem that is very much getting worse as you get to the back end of the network. This then is expandable across a much wider area of networks with a given density of devices, but that density of devices can be determined by size of network, length of pipes, geographical area. For each DMA or network, we would advise a study done to make sure that the right density is set and the right number of devices are in the network to give the greatest result. In the errors section, this is simply a list of errors and warnings which the devices have thrown out. As these are the test devices listed, they're currently not showing any. In the user section, this is a section whereby you can see users of the system. So as we're in the iVapps section, you can see all of the users that we've added to the iVapps section of the site. If you have an admin level of access, that means you have full access to add devices, edit or delete devices, change settings, and have complete control. If you have user access, that means you have access to read the data and make very, very basic updates. There is a delete function here should the situation ever arise where someone who has either admin or user access has either moved on from a business or changed role, in which case they're no longer requiring access to this site. They can be removed to ensure data integrity and security isn't adversely affected should that situation arise. We then have the logout function, which is as simple as it describes. Should you wish to log out, you can. And that is how the dashboard works. Thank you very much.